Hello and welcome to 10th Series 8 Metagame Monday, where I take a look at a popular team archetype and explain how and why its sets work, how to beat it, and how it matches up against the other archetypes in form of replays. So today we're going to be going over a peculiar archetype, which you would think is just some kind of like Japanese fantasy of some sort. It's not going to be very popular, but unfortunately for you, this archetype is very real and very popular alongside a lot of top players. Like, what's going on, David, you might be asking. There is Sun, there is Tailwind, there is Trick, there is Kyogre. And what is Urshifu doing exactly? Today we're going to be trying to just go over that. So, as you might have guessed, this archetype is all about just having a lot of leads and having a lot of options to lead with, and perhaps picking the right one for the matchup, or if there are multiple correct leads you can pick, you're gonna just bounce back and forth with them and like make pretty much say to your opponent like, oh, come on, guess what lead I'm gonna use, and opponent really doesn't know, and opponent has to guess correctly, or else it's just gonna get G-Max Mind Lashed, Tailwind Sleep Powdered, Max Ease plus Try Attacked with Trick Room, Kyogre and Torkoal in the back. That's really painful. Oh, and maybe I go with Tailwind and I lead Kyogre Tornadus. You guessed I'm gonna lead with Venusaur Tornadus? I lead Tornadus Kyogre. The all-time classic from 2020 and its early format. Alright, so yeah, that's basically what the team is supposed to do. Having like, so yeah, we got Venusaur Torkoal lead, then we got Tornadus plus Kyogre lead, Tornadus plus Venusaur lead, and probably the last one is Venusaur plus Paragon 2 lead, and all of them are very efficient at what they are trying to do. So let's just say what they're trying to do. Alright, so I'm gonna go over these combos, and then I'm gonna go over the sets themselves and Pokemon themselves. So of course Tornadus, this Tornadus set is just kind of weird, but yeah, it's Life Orb Tornadus for maximum offensive prowess. And it got Tailwind plus Ice Wind, so they're pretty much with Tailwind you're always going to outspeed the opponent with your Kyogre, and you're going to be able to go for powerful water spouts. Yeah, that's one lead. Other one is Venusaur plus Tornadus, which Venusaur is surprisingly sturdy with Dynamax and this amount of bulk, so it's going to definitely get at least one G-Max Mind Lash off, and then you can perhaps go for some Hurricanes, and in the back Kyogre plus Urshifu can probably reverse sweep you after with G-Max Mind Lash as well, just like chipping away at the opponent. That is extremely annoying since opponent cannot have Focus Sash and you're gonna have Focus Sash on Urshifu. It's really annoying for opponent to deal with the Tailwind, Mind Lash, and then Kyogre plus Urshifu in the back. Venusaur Torkoal lead is pretty classic. It's like, yeah, you just choose randomly between Sleep Powder and G-Max Mind Lash or Max Ooze, and you just make your opponent guess correctly. If opponent guesses incorrectly, it's just going to get massacred, but maybe opponent fakes out and he Dynamax, and that's pretty much waste of their turn. And what if they don't fake out? They're just going to get Sleep Powder to oblivion unless they are really boom. So yeah, pretty classic. This Torkoal has Yawn for more annoyingness as well. And the last lead is Venusaur Paragon 2, which might be the most unobvious what it's trying to do. So basically, Copper Berry makes... Let me actually start explaining the Venusaur set at the same time. Copper Berry makes Venusaur survive Life Orb Max Airstream from opponent's Tornadus with his EV spread. It also takes Landorus's Max Airstream, and I believe with Dynamax it takes Airstream from Life Orb Dragapult, and then it takes without Copper Berry another Airstream from Dragapult. So it's pretty bulky Venusaur, let's say. And the main purpose what it does with Paragon 2 is it goes for Max Ooze. Sometimes Paragon 2 gets a download boost on the lead as well, and which means it's going like after about one Max Ooze, you can get +1 special attack on Venusaur plus the special attack on Paragon 2, and suddenly Paragon 2 hits like a truck. Like, no, seriously, it hits really like a truck. And opponent suddenly has to take care of extremely bulky Pokemon with Recover that hits like a truck, and it's really annoying to deal with that. And it got Eerie Impulse to disrupt the opponent's Kyogres and opponent's Venusaurs, opponent's Tornaduses. It's basically just to annoy the opponent. But yeah, this is what you do with Venusaur Paragon 2 lead. Oh yeah, and if you just see opportunity to go for Sleep Powder, don't fear going for it. Now, these are all the leads. Basically, they're all kind of self-explanatory since they are very offensive. This team is extremely offensive, so yeah, even the Porygon that's normally very passive is very offensive on this team, so yeah, it's like, if you still don't know, like, if I went too fast over these leads, you can probably guess it. Just attack, just try to set up Tailwind and Trick Room and then just attack the right targets with the right moves, so it's just that simple, really. But yeah, as I've explained, the Venusaur takes Life Orb Max Earthstream from Tornadus, Max Earthstream from Xerneas, and 2 Max Earthstreams from Dragapult with Dynamax. And previous attacks are taken without Dynamax as well, which is really cool because then you can, for example, sleep powder the opponent's Xerneas or Tornadus and make them waste their Dynamax, and then you can, for example, Dynamax Kyogre in the back, which is coincidentally very bulky. So yeah, and why Weather Ball? Like, Weather Ball? Like, why would we have to ask ourselves, when would we use Max Quake on Venusaur? Well, basically we could snipe Regieleki, but Wine Lash KOs Regieleki even through Focus Sash, so that's actually a better move to make. Oh, how about Incineroar? Well, you might think like we got Weather Ball so we can KO opponents Venusaur or grass types like Amoonguss with Max Flare, because yes, if you use Max Strike from Weather Ball in a Weather, it actually transforms in the corresponding type. Like, it transforms into this Weather Ball, Max Strike transforms into Max Flare in Sun, and Max Geyser in Rain. So, which means you can just snipe Incineroar off with the Max Geyser, and it one-shots very reliably. It one-shots them very reliably. And you add speed naturally as well, so it's kind of nice. And it hits harder than Life Orb Max Quake, so you actually, some Incineroars might be EV'd to take the Life Orb Max Quake, but in Rain, Max Geyser actually hits harder and you can actually KO this Incineroar as a result. That's really cool, if you would ask me. That's really cool. And of course, Max Flare still does the job in KOing Venusaur, or twit KOing opponents Venusaur and Amoonguss. So I think that's this really cool way to just interpret 2 different moves in the one move slot. Oh yeah, and it absolutely roasts Cortana, as you're gonna see in Torn Ogre gameplay later in the video. Yeah, this Torkoal is pretty self-explanatory as well. It's actually most of a Trick Room sweeper, but it just still can do the job inside of the Trick Room. It walls Zacian really well and can revenge KO it in late game, so you can use it as your late game plan against Zacian, because when just Sacred Sword, this does like 3-hit KO and you one-shot back with Heat Wave, so yeah, that's pretty easy. And Yawn, you might be asking like, could I use Body Press? Yeah, sure. But I think Yawn, like Earth Power, is also more noteworthy. But Yawn is actually really annoying for some opponent's Pokemon that carry safety goggles to try to KO Venusaur. You can just Dynamax with Venusaur, go for an attack, and put them to sleep more slowly with Yawn, which ignores the safety goggles, which I think is pretty cute. I have seen some Torkoals actually using more bulky spread with Citrus Berry, or I have seen someone with Focus Sash Torkoal as well, but that takes the Focus Sash off of Urshifu, and with that, just kind of like you remove some kind of flexibility out of this team, and flexibility is all this team needs really. So yeah, it's really good because how flexible and how many leads it has, so don't remove that. But Citrus Berry with more bulky spread, I'm not sure, like I cannot like remember like good bulky EV spread, but if you really want to go like support Torkoal, I recommend just going like this. Just do this basically, and give it Burning Jealousy and make it Citrus Berry. That's pretty much how you go with Torkoal. That's bulky. It still does a really good job of still taking care of Zacian in the late game. It's still like, I actually don't believe, excuse me, you do not actually 2-hit KO opponent Zacian with Burning Jealousy. You don't, but Eruption does the job well enough. So yeah, you KO with Eruption. So yeah, this is what you want to go for if you want to use bulky Torkoal. Now, you might have been just asking yourself like Life Orb Tornadus, seriously? Well, yes, seriously, this is standard on this team. Prankster Tailwind is still like does what you would expect it to do, but Life Orb Max Airstreams hit like a truck. After all, you have to remember, this is like Tornadus is not like support that's like support, like it does not hit hard. This Xerneas has base 125 special attack, and with Life Orb and Max Airstream turning into 140 base power attack, this hits like a truck. Max Dark Pulse is there not for Calyrex, but actually for Max Darkness, because with Max Darkness you can lower the opponent's special defense, and then Kyogre can just go for Water Spout and just completely splish away any kind of Trick Room setup that has been attempted for. It's just, even if they got Resurrection, they just can probably get KO'd. Like, I can imagine, like, Max Darkness and Dominguez, and then you just double KO Dominguez and Dusclops. Like, that's what this combo is supposed to do. And Iceman is there for little support, but also it also annoys Landorus a lot. I believe it KOs Landorus. Like, with Max Hellstorm, you actually KO Dynamax Landorus. That's very cool, since some Landori are actually running a Safety Goggles or Lumberry. Just because they want to counteract Venusaur, and thus they give up on Assault Vest, and thus they just get KO'd by the Max Hellstorm. This is just another cool thing this team does. I have explained Porygon 2 pretty well, so like, already. I think this is like the most optimal EV spread. It's not doing anything specific, it's just, it gets the breakpoint here, as you can see. 2 extra points for 8 EVs, and it's just bulky, it's just specially bulky, so it takes Water Spouts a little bit better, Thunderbolts, and it still takes like Close Combat from Urshifu generally well. It does not take the Choice Band Close Combat from Urshifu. You would have to be literally max defense to take that, and then you would actually take it. But I do not recommend that. In metagame with Water Spouts, just run the spread. Ear Impulse, as I have explained, is like more so about to just... You can win some late game scenarios with Ear Impulse, solo with Porygon 2. You can imagine why. You just come up against a special attacker, you Ear Impulse out of existence, and then you just recover. They basically cannot break through you, and you just win slowly and surely in late game. And maybe even on timer, because you just got recover and you can literally win off the basically HP difference. You just got more HP than the opponent's Pokemon, and you just win on timer. And Ear Impulse really like irritates Kyogre and Trick Room like as well, so it's just like, it has other uses, of course. Kyogre is also like kind of like when you're in doubt what to use in the back, you probably are going to go with Kyogre plus Urshifu. Kyogre is just, this team overall actually is a lot about generalists that don't really care what they are up against. They just hit so hard and just set up Bind Lash, Sleep Powder, Eruption, Max Airstream, +2 Tri Attack, Ear Impulse, just working against all special attackers. This team really does not care what it ends up facing up against. It just hits so hard, and it just works so much in general that it just works. Now, the first note, like, this is very bulky Kyogre. It doesn't really need max special attack. It hits already so hard, especially when you Dynamax and then go for Mystic Water Max Geyser. You're really hitting really hard, and you know that. But with this defense, I don't know what you exactly take. I would still think Rillaboom's Beam's G-Max Ram solo KOs you, but you definitely take, I maybe think even Miracle Seed Grassy Glide from the Rillaboom. So yeah, you take Miracle Seed Grassy Glide from Rillaboom. Don't quote me on that though. I think it is a roll at least. I know it's a roll. Because I remember like some spread like this. Yeah, spread like this took Grassy Glide from Rillaboom, so I assume with a lot more HP here, we might be taking the Miracle Seed Grassy Glide at least like 50% of the time. But you are really physically bulky right now, which makes you take stuff like Max Quake from Landorus and like really nice fashion. Like Max Quake from bulky Landorus does like only 55% to you, and you just strike back with hard with Origin Pulse. It is really bulky Kyogre, and that's the irritating point about this Kyogre. It's really bulky. Also, Max Airstream plus, if you get a Max Airstream onto this Kyogre, it outspeeds, actually, excuse me. Oops, you want to do this, because now with +1 max after Max Airstream or 1 Ice Wind, you outspeed Thunderous and you outspeed Tornadus. So, yeah, that's really cool. It's still a little bit fast, but yeah, and you get a breakpoint special attack. So this is why this kind of exists. I have seen some people use Weakness plus Kyogre because it already is so bulky that it might take advantage of the fact opponents might attack into it with super effective attack, especially with Regieleki, which is very common on a lot of teams. So yeah, but don't change these moves except for Thunder. It can be Ice Beam. It just completely depends on what you want to counteract. Like, opponent's Kyogres could just fear your Thunder, since a lot of Kyogres run Ice Beam nowadays. But now you fear opponent's stuff like Amoonguss and Venusaur with this Kyogre. If you're using weakness policy, definitely go for Ice Beam, so you just can strike back the grass types back, like Venusaur. That would make sense, so yeah. But Mystic Water is, again, more general. It doesn't really need the... It works outside of the Dynamax pretty well as well. Since you will be Dynamaxing this Kyogre a lot as well, but yeah, it works without Dynamaxing much better with Mystic Water, so yeah. And Urshifu is literally generalist. So like, you got so many combos here that sometimes don't synergize with itself too well, like Xerneas, Venusaur, Kyogre, and now you just have 2 Trick Room mons? No, I don't think so. And like, Venusaur, Torkoal, or maybe Venusaur, Porygon to Torkoal, Kyogre, but sometimes you just want something that you can just slap on any team. Focus Sash or Urshifu, Dark type just works against so many stuff. It just works, you know. It doesn't really care what it faces up against, unless it's like Tapu Fini or Fairy type. It just hits hard and has Focus Sash and has priority. It's just good generalist. So yeah, that's why we got Urshifu. It's just, there's not much else to explain. So yeah, this is the team. There are no replacements for this. This is like, every time this archetypes comes to existence, it just plays exactly these 6. As I've said, like, there might be some set changes, but generally this is what it runs. So yeah, that's this team, and let's go over into some replays, into the replay section. Alright, so first off, Tornado. So yeah, most of these game plans are gonna be self-explanatory, because just how we just pretty much attack the opponent, and there's not much to explain. Although in this battle there is one moment we might have to explain. So basically, this is the worst case scenario. Like, if they lead Kyogre, we're just going to go for a jump. She makes Mind Lash. Because the opponent's team is just so hyper offensive, they cannot afford to not let the Trick Room go up. They just cannot afford to do that. So yeah, maybe you think like Max uses the better play here, but no, actually going for a G-Max Mind Lash is little bit better, since it allows you to break the focus session on possible Regieleki, and it irritates Kyogre in the back a little bit more as well, as you're gonna see. But yeah, Kyogre Tornado's lead would have been pretty useless, I'd say. Like, it's just G-Max Mind Lash food and try attack, and like, yeah, we're pretty much where are we right now, but with that Kyogre in the back, so I'm taking that as worst case scenario. Here we are max guarding because Thunder plus Max Airstream could KO, so I'm again taking the worst case scenario. Here, opponent predicts that and actually gets a paralysis. It doesn't matter. The most important part is we actually KO Regieleki here with Try Attack because Porygon 2 is a chant and has download boost. Oh yeah, we'll cover it a little bit later. One last note. Anyway, Kartana actually outspeeds Venusaur here. And you're seeing after Max Knuckle, it actually really stinks. But we're just gonna KO that back with just going for a Max Flare from Feather Ball. And we just got one more G-Max Mind Lash. As you're seeing here, it pays dividends. And Wicked Blow and just Sucker Punch just wins the game. Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, one more note. I think some Porygon 2s are running Thrice, but in this replay you saw how important it is to have download. It just really accumulates alongside with the G-Max Mind Lash and Max Ooze. It's really gonna make Porygon 2 a lot more powerful as an offensive threat, and as you saw here, it's actually important to be potent offensive threat. Sun is always fun to go up against, so let's just play it. Let's just like get this pain away from us already. Alright, so this lead, this is like basically a Trick Room, just it screams Trick Room. Alright, so the worst case scenario, like there are multiple things opponent can do. I think one of them is to just go for Fake Out in the Kyogre, which means I can go for a Hurricane plus Max Geyser in the Porygon 2. If opponent goes for Fake Out in the Tornadoes, I can just go for Max Darkness plus Water Spout and double KO. Switching the Groudon is generally extremely safe for the opponent. Like, basically opponent knows that I don't have Taunt because I'm running this team. So switching to Groudon is the most safest move and works against both Max Geyser and both Hurricane, or like Max Darkness plus Water Spout, as you're gonna see here. So yeah, this is the most safe play. It still does not look very fancy, but it always makes Porygon to set up the Trick Room, which is quite important. Yeah, Groudon is just kind of like finding Ice Beam attempt, not very effective. We actually underspeed Groudon. Do we have to be underspeed Groudon often? Like, I think sometimes we could. But yeah, it doesn't really matter if they just get a Precipice Blades off here, because we're just so defensive. We would take, for example, a Max Quake here from the Glacier. But I think, again, the Tornadus is just such an obvious target. And, like, Max Guarding from Tailwind is just not as obvious as well, I would say. So, this is generally a safe play to just go for Max. Go for a Max. Also, we just get unlucky roll here, so it doesn't KO us. It's generally safe to go for Max Guard from Tailwind. It's just unpredictable. And yeah, here we're just finishing off this Incineroar with a charcoal boosted Eruption. And yeah, opponent is just so behind at this point that opponent cannot really win. I believe I just make a mistake here. I like miss something, or oh yeah, I missed Origin Pulse. Yeah, but this game is over. More spawning next turn, and it's just going to be 100% safe. So yeah, I think even with additional Precipice Blades, opponent would not have one. We are a little bit too ahead at this point. Second Sun replay, that's going to go up. This is like the reason we actually go for Tornadus plus Kyogre. Is this late? You might be thinking like, oh wait, what if opponent leads with the Groudon? Well, in that case, we can just still go for the play I'm going to show you. We're just gonna go for Dynamax Xerneas, and oops, opponent misses Sleep Powder, and we just won the game. Yes, they actually have to. They absolutely have to go for Sleep Powder and Xerneas. I've had a game plan, I remember, where I took a... Actually, remember, maybe I saved the replay somewhere. Oh... Might be this one. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more serious replay. Let's just fast forward. We're just going to get Sleep Powder here. But yeah, this is generally what they have to do. They just absolutely have to go for Sleep Powder turn 1, or else Xerneas just completely rips them apart. And because they do not have Cover Berry and their Venusaur is probably not bulky, you actually one-shot the opponent's Venusaur with Max Airstream. So it's just kind of like, oh yeah, and we can wake up this turn and just win the game instantly. Yeah, that's just how it goes. But we are still asleep, unfortunately. G-Max Mind Lash just starts ticking. Venusaur switches in. I think Mind Lash is just generally a safe play for them to do again. We finally wake up here. Go for Max Earthstream. I'm actually going to go like fast here. And yeah, then they just Rock Slide again. They miss the Venusaur, which is a little bit unlucky. Yeah, Tornadus is fainting next turn. Glacier switches in. We're coming back with Tornado. Kyogre, just so we can just KO the Groudon. Close combat does not even come close to KOing Kyogre. Unfortunately, I believe I made a little bit of a mistake here by switching into Kyogre, because it would have been really nice to have in the back. By the way, Hex happens here. This was Veritable coming into Charizard here. That would have been guaranteed KO. Unfortunately, this way, Charizard just wins the game. If we would have gotten the Veritable off, we had Torkoal in the back, which just automatically wins against the Glacier, and we just win the game. Oh yeah, and if you like thinking like, oh, what if they targeted down Venusaur? Well, wait, Glacier. Well, we still survived the high horsepower, and we just came back with the Heat Wave. So yeah, no, excuse me. You actually go for Yawn, then Protect, and then you just get 2 Heat Waves off. I think that's the most reasonable move you do. So yeah, this is the game plan against Sun. There are like some uncertainties, but the luck is against opponents. So yeah, I think you should win this game. Alright, let's get the third bad matchup out of the way. It's not a bad matchup. These teams are just too complex. They are extremely complex, got a lot of modes and leads, so let's just go over it already. So, why leading with this? Basically, yeah, Lapras plus Incineroar. Like, you think this is like bad lead, but not really. opponent kind of has to kind of go for fake out in the Kyogre here, or else just water spout just kind of like drowns them. If you're wondering what would we do if Zacian would lead, well, first off, your Venusaur is bulky enough to take Flare Blitz and Sun from Incineroar, so you don't have to fear up against that. And Max Flare in Sun would outspeed and one-shot opponent Zacian, which would pretty much mean you would just get air restricted, and then your Kyogre just goes berserk. If they bring in Lapras a little bit later, you can still get a Wind Lash off. You got the Thunder on the Kyogre, so you do some good damage to the opponent's Lapras, and you still got Focus Sash Urshifu in the back, so yeah, you're just a little bit way too ahead, I'd say, and you should be just able to barely win the game. Oh yeah, just like, let me just fast forward with this. This is just like, yeah, Moltres. Yeah, we just won the game. So yeah, these are some tips for Zacian Lapdog matchup. Alright, let's go over some more casual matchups now. Like, for example, I might just go full fast here. This is like opponent's one of the best possible leads, and they are pretty much forced to switch to Fini instantly. So what I do is I actually wanted to preserve Torkoal, which was actually a wrong play, because now Solgaleo gets a Max Quake off before my Venusaur's G-Max Wind Lash, so Tapu Fini survives that. I believe the best play was to just go for Protect on the Torkoal turn 1, and then just switch to Kyogre next turn. But yeah, it still achieves about the same result. We just Max is still... Solgaleo is wasting a lot of time. I just get Wind Lash off under their feet, and they just cannot really deal much with that. I am just going Spectrier here. Opponent will get Bulldoze off, will KO the Venusaur, but at that point the opponent is just way too behind. And as I've said multiple times, against Solgaleo, late game Urshifu is absolutely death sentence, and opponent cannot do anything about this. You see, we just KO that, and like Moltres is just not good enough, not good enough to win this late game, especially with Kyogre in the back. So yeah, this is what you should do against Solgaleo. I really assume they will switch to Tapu Fini turn 1, or at least they will lead with it, because Sleep Powder is just such a death sentence for them otherwise. Alright, more funny matchups. Let's just go over a Xerneas. Alright, so again, you're seeing here in Incineroar Xerneas lead, very standard stuff, you know. Worst case scenario, again, opponent actually correctly predicts that I'm not going for a Sleep Powder, so opponent Flare Blitz, we survive that. Look at that recoil, that is brutal. Eruption does a lot of damage to Xerneas, and Xerneas actually faints from G-Max Wind Lash. This, ignore that, that's still my note from my previous team. Landorus is actually the main problem here, believe it or not. It's not the Xerneas, it's the Landorus, but for the Landorus, we actually have like a bunch of stuff in the back. Like I'm still waiting for the Kyogre to bring in after Regieleki faints. I'd assume Regieleki really wants to attack here, because it's just like bringing Focus Sash on Urshifu is good. And Kyogre really just wins this late game. With Wind Lash as well, just covering, even if opponent went for Max Quake the turn it targeted down the Urshifu, we would have first off survived the Urshifu, and second off the Wind Lash would have KO'd Regieleki after 2 Wind Lashes chipped. So yeah, I think we should be winning this game generally pretty easily. Now remember when I talked about 119 speed on Kyogre? Let's just show that in action here. If opponent is like, I'm gonna be assuming opponent is actually smart, Raichu Yveltal player, and actually predicts the Kyogre turn 1 correctly, that I'm just gonna go for max airstream. So this is actually a little menacing, because now the airstream really stings and hurts. Yeah, we just go for another airstream here. Opponent is actually forced to another airstream here. And we just go for Origin Pulse to just chip away this Yveltal really hard. Now, I just got a switch. Yeah, I just sacrificed the switch to here. Just because I actually believe Max Hellstorm would have carried that. And I think I threw a little by not going for it. So yeah, I was scared a little bit for weakness Blizzard chip. So I did not want to really activate that. With Ice Wind, the Kyogre is actually going to outspeed the Incineroar now. Otherwise, we would not have been able to, because Incineroar is just so naturally fast. So yeah, and now Thunder just finishes that off. We would not even, it was not required to go for Thunder. So actually, I recommend probably going for the Max Hellstorm on turn 3, just so you can just get the Yveltal. Then you have like Urshifu alive, and things get really ugly for the opponent. So yeah, I think that's the optimal Yveltal game plan. Alright, the Calyrex Shadow Rider, the most hyper-offensive team out there in the Wild West, I guess. Let's just again turn it on fast here. Alright, there's a lot to explain after this turn. So basically, I'm just gonna mention Max Lightning has 25% the KO tornadoes from full. But basically having Urshifu carry Focus Sash still would be pretty horrible for what they got in the back. Especially the Calyrex Shadow Rider suddenly just Sucker Punch, just like having to go for in late. If opponent goes for Max Lightning and Tornado survives the attack, I'll get a Max Earth Stream off, and Urshifu still has a Focus Sash, which pretty much means Calyrex is not gonna do anything this game, because now Sucker Punch is Sucker Punch would be there for 2 more turns, and that would be really irritating for opponents Calyrex to get attack off. So yeah, I just go for Max Guard here, because now Max Lightning has like 68, not 2% of KO. Opponent's Urshifu has to go for close combat, because it would have to just go ahead and try to knock out the Porygon 2 in the back. So yeah, I just get a double knockout here. The opponent also really, if opponent went for Surging Strikes, I would just switch to Porygon 2, set up Trick Room, and win the game on the spot there. So yeah, and now with the Calyrex being there, I could potentially even timer stall this Calyrex or PP stall this Calyrex. Calyrex cannot KO the Porygon 2. I get a Trick Room up, and I just Eerie Impulse and Origin Pulse this Calyrex for a knockout. This game has a lot of variables, but I think just going for the play I've shown you turn 1 is the most optimal, even in the worst case scenario that is turn 1. Maybe it would be worse if the opponent actually gets the good roll with 25% on a Max Lightning. That would be pretty horrible. Yeah, that would be actually insane. But I think just opponent knows that and would not go for it. Plus, some Thunderous might have a little bit more bulk, so it's even less chance to knock out. So yeah, we probably should still win the game pretty easily. Mimirex. So there are multiple leads of what opponent can go for. I think again, Incineroar plus Mimikyu is generally the safest one. I think I'm going for worst. No, I'm not going for worst case scenario here. Basically, if I went for Sleep Powder into Mimikyu here, that was a win. But I guess opponent didn't want to predict that. Flare Blitz, we again just died pretty nicely. Eruption just absolutely decimates the opponent. And yeah, opponent could go for something like Fake Out into Torkoal, but I would still get an Eruption off next turn, and it would change nothing. And it would actually be worse, because now I would actually outspeed his Calyrex with a Torkoal, and would probably just one-shot it in Trick Room with Eruption. So actually, opponent not getting the Trick Room up is actually good for the opponent. So yeah, I'm just going for hyper fast here, because this game is pretty much over, and it's not hard to see why. It's just like we got Urshifu, just Urshifu in the back, just cleans that up, and we just win this game. So yeah, the opponent has to take care of a lot of stuff on the lead, but just because we take the Flare Blitz, just because we just don't even risk Sleep Powdering with the finish switch, I think we just should have the advantage. And if opponent makes one small mistake, opponent is completely out of the game. So I think this matchup is pretty favorable in our favor. And last but not least, Dialga. Pretty forgotten archetype, I would say, at this point of the game. But I think I can show I can demonstrate the Landorus, the general Landorus, like how to deal with Landorus. So you go for Airstream turn 1, just to put it in Hailstorm range next turn, and you just Sleep Powder. You don't even have to, you see, we actually outspeed the Landorus, but also with competetive we just take the attack. So unfortunately, I got pretty low roll here with the Hailstorm, and opponent actually gets the knockout on Venusaur here. but the Halo finishes it off, and like, what you're gonna see is just funny, right here. We get that, and we just bring in Kyogre, and we just do this. Just max darkness, no mercy whatsoever. Water Spout absolutely decimates the opponent. That was under light screen, resisted. Kyogre just doesn't really care about that, and yeah, Kyogre just wins this game. Yeah, I just like wasted some tons here because this game was over, and it's not too hard to see why. It's just like I could just protect the Kyogre here, and like yeah, this is a win. So yeah, the Dialga matchup I think is pretty easy because they rely on Landorus a lot to beat the Sun, but we are not just Sun, we got Kyogre and Xerneas, so they are kind of screwed right from the beginning. So yeah, I think this is another favorable matchup. Now for some counteractions to this archetype. So basically, it's kind of difficult to counteract all of these things at once, but these 6 Pokemon do their best to just kind of like do it. It's hard to counteract it in one Pokemon. It's although almost impossible, I would say, but these Pokemon do their jobs, try to do their jobs the best. So other Venusaur can be pretty good counteraction for them because Venusaur puts Xerneas to sleep. If they Dynamax and go for Max Airstream, you take their attack, as I've said before, and put them to sleep, wasting their Dynamax. You can do the same to Porygon 2, which is just slower, and this way you can stop the Trick Room or at least buy some time. And if you have more speed than the opponent on Venusaur, you can outspeed them and 2-hit KO them before they 2-hit KO you with a Max Flare, making you win the mirror. So yeah, and you can have like Earth Power, like fast Earth Power from Venusaur could be very irritating for them to deal with because now you KO their Torkoal and they don't KO you with Max Flare, 2-hit KO you Max Flare now. You really are irritating for them as long as you speed creep them, and they usually the Venusaurs are pretty slow. If they are not slow, they go some like this range of speed, like maximum amount is like 123. If you go further than that, you like 127, you pretty much are guaranteed to outspeed them and just win the mirror, put them to sleep, and just annoy them irredeemingly. So yeah. Zapdos is another good counteraction. It's I think the only Pokemon in the kind of the game that counteracts both Sun and Sand. 2 Max Earth Streams just KO Venusaur, right? You're immune to their Sleep Powder, you do it KO their Venusaurs, right? Yeah. Even with Cover Berry. You one-shot their Kyogre with Max Lightning, you don't really care about what Xerneas does to you, and yeah, you just one-shot them with Max Lightning, since it's actually more powerful than Max Lightning from physical Thunderous. Even though Xerneas has 10 more special defense, you got like 20 more special attacks, so it's pretty much guaranteed knockout for them. So yeah, but you have to be careful of Porygon 2, of course. You have to have some kind of like Thunder next to you, Fake Out, just to handle the Porygon 2. They do not have their own Fake Out, so your Fake Out should just go unnoticed, or your taunt should go unnoticed. So yeah, that's their weakness, as we're gonna go over in the next few counteractions. So yeah, keep Porygon 2 in check and its Eerie Impulses and Trick Room, and Zapdos should reap the benefits. Now, this was my counteraction in Blitzcrank 3 for the opponent's Porygon 2. Now, I mean this archetype, so like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I use Ancient Power just to counteract the opponent's Charizard, but I think with Taunt this can get even more brutal. So yeah, you taunt the Porygon 2, you are completely immune to Sleep Powder, you do it carry their Venusaur with Max Airstream, and you can set up Nested Plot on some kind of like more passive positions. You're very specially bulky, so the Water Spouts don't really harm you that much. They harm you, but not that much. And you weaken their Water Spouts with Max Airstream, get a Berserk boost, and then you hit really hard. So yeah, and this Moltres is supposed to counteract the Porygon 2 leads plus Venusaur and Xerneas plus Venusaur leads. It does not counteract Kyogre too well plus Xerneas, but it still gets something done in that lead, even in that lead. So yeah, that's the idea basically for Moltres. And not like, now let's just get into more specific territory. If you're having more so of a trouble with the Venusaur Torkoal lead, you should probably, like, you can run Assault Vest, but then you're pretty much inviting the Sleep Powder in. You would have to have Finny on the team, just so you don't have to run Safety Goggles on this. And unlike the other 2 birds, you're actually touching the ground, so you can use Finny on your team to further support the Incineroar. Max Flare with high attack like that actually KOs their Venusaur. And it's Max Flare, not Flare Blitz. So you actually KO their Venusaur. And if they go for something like switch to Kyogre and Max Geyser, you, with a Sword West for example, you take the hit really well. And you Max Flare, change the weather back to the sun. So suddenly opponent's Venusaur can't touch you at all. And their Kyogre cannot really touch you that hard either because there is sun, so it doesn't really hurt that much. So yeah, that's... And you again, if you're running the safety goggles set, you can slap a taunt on this so you counteract the Porygon to you better as well. Of course, this is about the same thing, but it counteracts the Kyogre a little bit better and Porygon to you, definitely. You don't even have to really run taunt on this because G-Max Ram solo hits so hard, even with the Salt West set, so... You can pretty much double up the Porygon 2 with like close combat plus G-Max Ram solo and you are guaranteed to just knock them out, so you don't really have to run taunt. It's an option though, and yeah, definitely run Grassy Glide. Like you probably are not gonna KO their Kyogre guaranteed with the Grassy Glide, especially if they're like if they Dynamax, but G-Max Ram solo, Assault West, Max Attack, or you are going to definitely irritate their Kyogre a lot. And with Assault West, you take their Max Airstream from Tornadus pretty well as well. Like, they probably 2-hit KO you, but they only 2-hit KO you. And you can just, like, do something stupid with your ally Pokemon, like Thunderbolt, whatever. Just put fear in them, you know? And by the way, you can go for Max Strike from Fake Out to slow them down, and then you can do some stuff like that. You can use that. Just a little tip. And Max Quake allows you to hit the Torkoal somewhat harder. So yeah, that is, I think, the real beam. And last but not least, Taunt Whimsicott is just going to irritate the opponent's Xerneas. There is not going to be Tailwind, there is not going to be Trick Room. And you can use something like Fake Tears on Whimsicott just to, for example, KO their Venusaur with strong attack from like Calyrex, from like Zapdos, from like Moltres, from whatever basically that is special. Is Dynamaxed and has Life Orb. It's gonna really hit hard the opponent with this support, and they are not gonna get their speed control up, and you are. But watch out, they might go for some like, if you go for Taunt into Tornadus, they might Dynamax their Tornadus, go for Max Airstream, and get their speed control this way. So keep an eye on that. Definitely carry some, if you want to pair this with something, pair it with something like Lapras, or at least something that deals with Tornadus decently, so you do not really even have to take the speed control from Tornadus into account for Max Airstreams. So yeah, these are probably the best counters. I think the first 3 are the best ones. The last 3 are a little bit more desperate if your team just really cannot accept any of these Pokemon into the team. But yeah, Venusaur is probably arguably the best one, and it does not really... You can run it without Sun as well. It's such a good Pokemon, it doesn't really need Sun. And Cover Berry very rarely takes away your item slot from something else on your team, so I highly recommend running this Venusaur. So yeah, that is the episode, and I'll catch you next time. Not sure if I'm going to be still covering Series 8, probably maybe covering my team for my Players Cup 3, or maybe some other popular team. I'm thinking like the Umbreon Sun with Grimmsnarl. That has been popular pretty well, a lot in lately. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned something new, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.